it's Dave Barnett from investlocalbook.com. I've got another question today about buying a business. This question's from Bob. Really the question is about evaluating businesses, and Bob wants to know when he looks at a business, how many years of results should he average out when deciding what kind of numbers to use. So if sales change every year, do we average out, for example, 3 years of sales or 5 years of sales? What averaging do we do to the numbers? And the truth of the matter is, it may be a frustrating answer for you, Bob, but it depends. And this is what it depends on. It depends on the trend. Let's take a look at the whiteboard. All right, Bob, so what I've done here is I've created an example company, and we're going to call this one growing company. Now, each one of these columns represents a year. And so we have 6 years of data here, and then the dotted line is our forecasted year. So it's our best guess as to how the upcoming year is going to shape up. Now, normally you're evaluating businesses based on financial statements, which means that if the financial statement for this last year is in your hands, it means you're already into that forecast year. So you may be able to look at least a few months of results for the upcoming year and see if it looks like it's going to be performing as well as prior years. Now, in this case, what people sometimes want to do is they say, look, let's just average together a bunch of years. But in reality, that's not the best way to look at a company. The most recent year of performance is the best indicator of the performance of the company. And if I was evaluating a business that had sales that were continuously growing year after year and profits that were lined up just as nicely growing year after year, then what I would actually do is I would probably do a weighted average, and I would probably put 50% of the weight on the most recent financial statement. I might put 10% of the weight on the forecasted year if we were reasonably certain that it was going to perform as we expected. And then I might put some weighting on these past years, but I wouldn't make it an even weighting. I might put 20% on the year before, and this gives me 70, and then I might put 15%, and then this gives me 60, 80, 95, and then I might put 5% there. So I would use a weighted average with the majority of my weighting being on the most recent year. So this is an example of a growing company. Let's take a look at some other examples. All right, here we've got the opposite situation. We have a declining company. We have sales that are going down every year, and we're projecting another small increase in sales, and we've got profits that are going down every year as well. This is completely a different situation. If you were trying to sell a company like this, you would probably want to make some sort of argument to use an even average of several years of results. If you were buying the company, though, the very first thing you'd have to isolate is, why are the sales declining? Is there a reason why this industry is falling out of favor? I mean, are you buying a video store in the modern age of online streaming movies, for example? Is it just the industry is dying off? Or are there problems with the way the company is managed and run that maybe you could fix? You never pay for something that could be. As I mentioned in many of my other videos, you always buy for what you get. You pay for what you get. So in this case, if I was doing an evaluation from Bob's point of view as a buyer, I would actually want to have all of my weighting on the most recent years. And in fact, I would probably do something like 85 and 15. So if I was projecting even more decline in the last year, I'd want to have some weight on that so that we drag down the overall effect of the different years' performance. This company in the future year has very little in common with this company back here. This company was bigger, had more sales, probably more customers, maybe more employees, more profits, etc., than this company over here. There's a material difference between how these companies operate. Let's take a look at 2 more examples. So here's another example, and I'm going to call this one uncertain trend. And what we see here is a bunch of moves, up and down, up and down. There's no real consistency to the performance one year after another. We can't clearly see that there's an increase or a decrease in what's going on in this business. Now, if we can identify why, so for example, a ski resort maybe has its revenues and profits directly tied to the amount of snowfall every year. That can give us an indication as to why the performance jumps all over the place. But from the point of view of a buyer wanting to buy a business, your concern is, how do I average these numbers together? Again, in all of the different situations that I've looked at, the last full year performance is still your best indicator of what the business is worth, how the performance is. So in a case like this, I would actually want to put a little more weight than the first example. So I might put 60% weighting on this year, and then maybe 15 and 10. So this would give me 75, 85, and then maybe 5 here and 10 over here. So we're still using an average. In this case, we're getting more of a sampling of other years' performance, but we're still primarily looking at the last full year of results, given that the most recent performance is in most likelihood the most relevant performance to how the company is going to perform. What you're probably noticing is that in none of these cases have I simply taken 4 or 5 years of results and just averaged them. Because, quite frankly, a company 5 years ago is very different from the way that the company operates, behaves, the markets, etc. of a company today. And so as we get further into history, the results increasingly become less relevant. I always love it when people say, hey, it's a great company, it's been around for 80 years. Well, a lot of steel mills have been around for 80 years, and a lot of other big industries that don't have such a great performance track record in today's day and age. The fact of the matter is, the longevity of a company may be good for its story, its marketing, its number of customers, the people who have heard about it, but what we're really concerned about is, how is this company operating, how does it perform today, and what is the likely outcome of the company going to be in the initial time period when we take it over as buyers. Let's take a look at another example that's a little bit different. All right, in this last example, I'm going to call this one the rapid growth example, because I've had a few cases recently that I've worked on where this has been the scenario. We've got companies that, because of really unique intellectual property, have been able to create products where they're the only player and they create significant value for their customers, such that everyone in a given industry wants to switch over to their product. So there's growing demand from all over the world for these products. People want to sign on to be customers, and every year the company is logging incredible growth, like 30%, then 50%, then 70%, then 100%, then 150% growth year after year. Now, that kind of growth creates certain challenges, obviously, as far as cash flow and receivables and things. But in some industries, if you're able to demand deposits up front and things like that, you can actually work with that kind of growth. Now, in a situation like this company in the final year literally has nothing in common with the company of a few years ago. And in this case, what I was suggesting to the person who wanted to have the business evaluated was that from the seller's point of view, he's going to want to drum up the fact that the future is so bright and that this thing is going to carry on and be profitable and grow like crazy into the future. The buyer obviously wants to get as good a deal as he can, but as this thing grows and grows and grows, clearly the business has more and more and more value. In a case like this, what actually ended up happening was I put 80% of the valuation on the final year and 20% on the future forecasted year, with the idea being that this valuation would have to be updated if the deal didn't happen within a few months. It was going to have to be updated again, because the company keeps changing in a material way as we move forward into the future. And not only is this kind of growth going to give you you're going to base the evaluation on the biggest sales and profit numbers, but the seller is also going to command a top rank multiple, given the fact that the company is such a shiny jewel that a lot of different people obviously are going to want to get their hands on. So Bob, I hope this helps. Your question, do we average the last 3 years? No, I've never used sort of an average of any number of years. It's always got to be a weighted average. You're always going to want to put a maximum sort of weight on the most recent history. And if things are going down in a big way or up in a big way, then you're going to want to consider maybe even a forecast year as the company changes in a material fashion. Anyway, I hope this was helpful. And if you have any other questions about how to buy or sell small businesses, come to my blog site, investlocalbook.com. Check out my business buyer course at businessbuyeradvantage.com. And soon I'm going to have my exit planning course, which will be online. Come to my blog site and get yourself signed up for that one as well. Have a great day.
Hey, you made it to the end of the video. That's great. Don't forget, visit www.investlocalbook.com. Sign up for my email list. It's right down here under the welcome video. Thanks, and we'll see you next time.